who are traumatized engage in negative behaviors or self-endangering behaviors, where they start following pairs because they are seeking companionship, and they end up making a mess of themselves. Some of them end up becoming chain smokers. They allow themselves to be abused so much because they are looking for someone who is going to acknowledge the fact that I am into existence and I'm worth something. A lot of them, 95% of the children who are adversity, let me just put it like that, who are traumatized, always end up with a bad pair. And they end up making a very deep mistake if they are not caught on time. So this is actually a part of my story. Imagine a child who was sexually abused. You need to wake up every morning with that memory that someone forcefully took advantage of you. And then sometimes it's our cousin, sometimes it's our father, sometimes it's a stepdaddy, sometimes it's a stepmommy. You wake up in the same house every day with this same person that took advantage of you and said, shh, don't tell anybody. It's traumatizing. A lot of us has been in that shoe. And then okay, let me just say 75% of the population of children are actually passing through trauma. Okay, last month, November, I took a tour around Nnewi, about 5 schools on AC surveys, and the result, I'm still working on it, is quite alarming. 70%, if not more, are having serious adverse childhood experiences. And then 4 out of 6 of those children have more than 4 or 5 ACs. What I mean by 4 or 5 is a lot of them has been abused, a lot of them has been facing domestic violence. Like, you see all of them packing. Mine was just 2 because I had parental separation, and then I felt lonely. I felt my emotions were not met. Mine was just 2. Imagine children who had to suffer more than 4 or 5. It's traumatizing. Now, my resilience, how I started coping, came from the fact that when I got admission into university, up to Abia State University, I kind of got into Dominion City, and mine was just to come to church. After church, I leave. Boom, nobody sees my back. And then one day, my pastor caught me on my way and was like, come here. You seems like something is bothering you. It seems like something is wrong with you. And then I kept wondering, how did this man know something was wrong with me? Because I already know something was actually wrong with me. I knew something was wrong with me, but just that I don't know what was actually wrong with me. So my pastor had to tell me, you look traumatized, you look depressed. I was like, what's depression? I don't even know what depression means, but I know something is wrong, but I don't just know what to call them. So he welcomed me, he introduced me to his wife, I could come close to them. I started having a family that loves me, so to say, afresh. I started releasing myself a bit. That was the first part of resilience. I felt love. I started seeing some of those things, those fear. Sometimes I could just stay, all of a sudden my heart started pounding, as if something is chasing me, as if I'm scared of something, because these are things that trauma can actually do. You just feel nervous for nothing. It actually happens. Then from my pastor, I was introduced to reading some books on trauma, anxiety, how to get whole, how to become whole again, and all of that. And one day, there's something striking I read online that helped me change everything, because there was something that happened to me because of the whole incident. My mom wasn't my friend because she was readily unavailable. The only relationship that existed between the both of us was the fact that she was my mother. Like, I say it everywhere, but I have actually I've gotten over it, but I just share it so that people will understand what we talk about traumas. So I read online that parents who have children with ACs also pass through traumas themselves. So I had to start considering that part of my mom. Imagine my mom passed through childhood trauma just like I'm passing through myself, and then she's now grown and she had to live with 6 children alone without her husband. It's also traumatizing in our part. And also trying to take care of all of us, 6 of us at the same time. Nothing can be more traumatizing than it. So I had to start opening up a space for my mom. And my pastor had to start telling me, this part is always emotional. I said, love your mother because she loves you. Just that she cannot do anything to change it. She just wants you to have a better life. She's not showing it, but deep down your heart, this is what this woman wants for you. I started loving my mom before I don't even love her. Sorry to say. Not really me, but because of the trauma I was facing and all of that. So that was the point, the first point of my resilience coming. Now, I actually felt something was wrong with me. But the truth is, nothing was actually wrong with me. I just needed a very good environment for me to start thriving. So now there is a call to action to some of these things. So there are basic things we just need to do to help these children thrive. Because believe it or leave it, 70% of children all over the world, all over Nigeria, are passing through adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma. So one of the very first things we do is just what we are doing now, which is raising awareness.
Yeah.
We need to raise awareness because don't just assume children are fine. Okay, I think last 2 weeks when I went home for the election break, my sister lives with a teenager, and then she said one of those days she caught her with a knife. What are you doing with a knife? She said she just feels she is not worthy. She was just saying a manner of thing that even her mom told her at a point that your brother is better than you. She just feels, I was like, you're 17 years old and you're already feeling disappointed in yourself. I myself, that I'm already my 20s, what should I feel about myself? So these children are traumatized. They are seeing themselves in the light of what the devil wants them to see, not actually in the light of who they actually are. So raising awareness is one of the points where we come to realization that there is this special group of children. That is why anytime I see a child that is behaving in reverse of what their counterparts should behave, I don't just judge. I sit and I observe you. Because already I know there is no smoke without fire. Something is actually pulling the trigger. I will have, even my son wanted to start raising alarm, you will go. I don't want you to stay with me. I told her, come. Look at this child. For her to even try taking her own life is enough to tell you that this child is actually in danger. Thank God I was able to explain some things about adverse traumas to my elder sister, and she accepted. On Sunday, she went home with the girl, and I earnestly pray that she will be able to manage her. So we need to raise awareness. All the child-friendly organizations like churches, schools, must come to the realization that if you're dealing with 100 children, just know that about 70% of those kids could be passing through trauma. So when you're teaching on the board and then you turn and then you see a child who is just moping like someone who is lost, don't just raise cane and start flogging. Know that something could be wrong with this child. I read something online that caught my attention. It said, no amount of pay attention can bring a child back from disassociation. So you could say pay attention, the child will be looking at you. So imagine if that child was sexually abused. Pay attention. They are paying attention looking at you. But inside their brain, they are trying to focus on that event that took place last night, where that guy was trying to raise up their clothes, when that guy was telling them, don't tell anybody. While you're teaching on the bird, they are paying attention, isn't it? But they are paying attention to what their mind has to say to them. And this is what trauma can actually do. We need to raise awareness. I go to schools. I do a lot of things about ACEs. I conduct screenings. I go to schools. I talk to them because we need to know about it. So now the next thing we need to do after raising awareness is tell your stories. Sometimes, there's something I actually found out. Some of those adverse childhood experiences, some of the stories are no longer clear because of years has passed by. But the truth is, in as much as we don't tend to remember all the stories, the feeling never leaves unless we get to a point of resilience. So we need to tell our story. In as much as that one of my pastors were helping me then in Dominion City, but the very first day I learned about what ACEs are was when I got into a TED Talk by a doctor, Dr. Nadine Book. She's actually a Canadian-American pediatrician and also a Surgeon General in Canada and all of that. She was also talking about adverse childhood experiences and all the stories she was talking about. I had to sit down. I was like, this woman is actually talking to me. She was telling about other people's story and part of her own story. And then I sat down. I was like, this is not just about depression. This is not just about anxiety. This is not just about fear. This is about my childhood toxic experiences. Because of those stories, my own stories, I was able to identify with them. So sometimes we tell our stories because when we tell our stories, people get to identify theirs with ours and they have the strength to talk about theirs. Last year, November, I visited a school in Onitsha, Awada, and I told them just a part of my story, not even all. And after the section that ended by 9, I had one-on-one section that lasted from 9 to 1 o'clock. They were telling me their stories. At some point, I had to tell them excuse. I got to the restroom, I started tearing up. Because what these children were passing through, I thought I had trauma, but mine is still learning work, so to say, where some of them are. So we need to tell our story to help them know that they are not alone. And if I could pass through some of this thing and I get to a point of resilience and I am better and my story is becoming a message, you too can also be aware of what is happening to you, become better, and help us to transform the life of those other children who are passing through traumas. So we need to learn to tell our story. And then there's one striking thing about ACEs, traumas, that I tell people. When a child is passing through adverse childhood experiences, it has a later effect at adulthood. Imagine a child who suffered domestic violence and then went through the wrong pair and they introduced him to smoking cigarettes and all of that. He smoked cigarettes from a teenagehood down to his 30s, his 40s. What happened? He could start having some terminal diseases. He could start having some chronic heart issues. Then there was a time I had issues with my mom. We disagreed over a lot of things before my resilience. About 2 to 3 months, I had this spontaneous tachycardia. I just say, at the spike of even a car horn, I feel a spontaneous heartbeat. And then we went to the hospital. After ECG, they said nothing was wrong with me. They couldn't see anything. I took drugs for the spontaneous heartbeat to cease, but nothing. At a point, when I was going through resilience, one day I just remembered, I'm not feeling anything again. Then I came to a realization that what they are saying about linking trauma and adverse physical effect is true. Because ECG, for some of us who are medically inclined, electrocardiograph, which helps you to determine if anything was wrong with your heart, they did it on me and they didn't see anything, yet I was having heartbeats as fast as what I can't just explain. But it all disappeared just because I had a friendly environment where I felt love. So if we're able to tell our stories, so saving a child from trauma saves a potential adult in future. A lot of things adults are passing through now, you can trace it from their upbringing. I have one here in the School of Nursing. When she came to me, she said anytime they want to write examination, she just starts panicking all of a sudden. She just feels anxiety taking hold on her. I had to ask her, tell me about your family. Tell me about, like, was I talking? And I found that she was like, her father is this soldier kind of man that when he wants to spank you, the whole of the universe will know. And the father can talk to her mother. Like, I saw domestic violence, in as much as it's not. Those things could have started from her childhood. And now, even in her late 20s, they are still manifesting. So we are not just saving a child, we're also saving a potential adult. And then the next thing we have to do is, we have to create a friendly environment. Create a friendly environment. Whenever you see a child, whenever you see a teen, you feel this teenager is actually living a reverse of the counterpart, don't judge. Get close to them. Make them seen, make them heard, make them feel loved. It's actually possible that you can't change everything. In the case of my mom, who was practically the breadwinner of the home, you wouldn't advise her to leave what she's doing to cater for us and come and sit down and be hugging me and be kissing me. Mommy loves you. Will you pay my school fees? Let's be practical. But the best thing that happened to me was other people who gave me an accommodating environment to thrive. So in as much as my mom was busy, which practically was not her fault because she was void of what to do, but I got a safer environment that helped me thrive. So those kids who are actually having, okay, imagine the state of Nigeria now, where we are buying naira, a lot of things are happening. A lot of parents don't even have time for their children. If you're passing through trauma, they don't even know what trauma is. As a matter of fact, some of them are even traumatized as adults, but they don't know. So they don't even care about their childhood trauma or if their child is being neglected. The only thing they care is, I need to put the food on the table, I need to pay your school fees, you need to be clothed. That is, but imagine we can create an organization, could create an environment. There are people who create fellowship online communities, off-site communities, where they gather teens time to time to talk to them about trauma.
Yeah.
We've had a tremendous testimony of people, teenagers who are walking on the street, not knowing they had trauma, but when they come into an environment of fellowship where they are exposed to love, they sometimes you talk to them and then they burst into tears. At a point when I got to some of those fellowships, when I come back, I practically feel sick for days because I just keep wondering, how would these children feel? But the point is, if we can do our best, you can start with a child. That child, once he or she is healed, can get another child for you. Even the child you helped heal can heal someone else. And we also need to know that these children are worth millions of potentials. And we will not allow them to be limited because they are traumatized. Trauma is not a death sentence. It's just a thief, like I said. But you can snatch someone from the hand of the trauma if we are actually willing to do our part. Now, I saw something online that actually caught me. He said 70% of why people stop negative behavior is because they have an adult who believes in them and who is ready to stand and help them change. So if you have someone who is ready to actually see you change and who is every day taking care of you, checking on you, giving you words of affirmation, you have no reason but one day you got to sit down and tell yourself, this is the end of this traumatic road for me. As for me, I'm whole. These things are not affecting me again. I am not just, I don't just have the experience. I've worked closely with some of the children who had this experience. And I can tell you, by my experience, by my work, by my association, that children, 70% of them are traumatized. Even Center for Disease Control in Nigeria, they've actually registered. The World Health Organization, it is real. So what are we going to do about it? Because if we don't take care of it now, remember those children, they are becoming adults. If they don't thrive in childhood, that means we don't have adults who will thrive. And most times, that is why our society, they are immersed. So, a wake-up call for all of us. Let's spread awareness about childhood trauma. Say as much as you can about it. You can even read about it. ACEs is an acronym. ACES. Adverse Childhood Experiences, also known as childhood trauma. You can read about it online, share information. If you are actually associated with it, seek for help and tell your stories, because if you're telling your stories, is a strength, like I said, to someone else. And most importantly, if you have a ministry or something you do for teenagers, please, at some point, try to identify trauma, because trauma can cause a lot of limitation in the life of children. I was once limited, but by the special grace of God, I became a league of my own. And it didn't just start there. At each day passing by, I'm becoming better than what I used to be. And this is because of people who has helped me and the love-filled environment I got. So if I could be happy sharing my story, a lot of children will be happy sharing their story, because they are going to be more than leagues of their own, and they will thrive in an environment, and our society will be better and better. Thank you very much.